What's up, y'all? It's Isaiah. Welcome back to another video. And trade deadline season in the NBA is fastly approaching. And while a lot of people expect it to be a boring trade deadline where nothing happens, you never know in the NBA. Sometimes people be lying. So we're gonna go over some trades that I would like to see throughout the vast timeline of trade deadline season. And of course, spoiler alert: this is our first trade of the day. Ja Morant has become the biggest name on the trade block just because Shams Charania reported that Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies are working on a trade to send him out of Memphis. So we're going to send him out of the country entirely. I'm just kidding there, but of course we're going to send him to the Toronto Raptors in exchange for Emmanuel Quickley and Grady Dick. Now, of course, Ja Morant has fallen out of favor with the Memphis Grizzlies. We're going to give him a fresh start with a team that wants to contend. I don't want to call them a contending team, but a team that wants to contend. They were in the trade rumors for Trae Young. I believe Jake Fisher reported as of recently that they offered Emmanuel Quickley and some picks, but the Hawks opted to go with cap flexibility of CJ McCollum's 1 year deal as opposed to Emmanuel Quickley's 4 year deal worth $32 million a year. So we're going to have Toronto get their point guard upgrade here and Ja Morant. Now, I think Ja Morant would be a good fit for what the Raptors have going on. He's a scorer. He's not going to be the same creator that Emmanuel Quickley can be, but that leaves more opportunities for Scotty Barnes to really control the pace of the offense. I think Ja Morant would do a really good job of giving them potentially a superstar upgrade and really getting them to where they want to be in the Eastern Conference. Out of that play-in territory, that 5-6 seed territory, and up into that top three conversation. As for the Grizzlies here, you get Emmanuel Quickley, who I think can be a good holdover point guard, maybe give you some gaudy stats here. Also have Emmanuel Quickley in fantasy basketball, so I would like this to happen. And then you also get Grady Dick in this deal, who's been really out of the rotation for Toronto as of late. It seems like Jacoby Walter has really taken that spot as like the off the bench catch and shoot shooter, and Grady Dick just hasn't worked out in Toronto so far. So we're gonna give him a new home in Memphis to see if they can really capitalize on whatever potential he has left. But Ja Morant to Toronto, first trade of the day. Time will tell if I'm right. And in this case, time will tell if the reports are right. Anthony Davis to the Atlanta Hawks has been heavily rumored since the Trae Young trade went down. It seems like the next move for Atlanta, really bulking up, right? Bulking up their front line in exchange for Kristaps Porzingis, Zachary Rissache, last year's number 1 overall pick, and then Luke Kennard. I mean, 2024 was Zachary Rissache's number 1 overall pick here, and as expected, I think from what a lot of people expected, Zachary Rissache has just not worked out so far for Atlanta, and everybody was essentially reached to be the number 1 overall pick, and they chose Rissache just based off his raw abilities and talents. But so far, it just hasn't worked out. It didn't help that Jalen Johnson also broke out in his spot, so he's never been able to get a lot of minutes to truly develop. Sending him to Dallas, I think, would help, but of course, you have Cooper Flag there, so maybe they can somehow coexist together in this scenario. I don't know, but the real story here is Anthony Davis and Kristaps Porzingis. To this day, I don't know why the Hawks even traded for Porzingis in the first place. Didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I think they were just trying to capitalize on something with Trae Young to make it work. But of course, he's been dealing with that disease he has, and then just the constant injuries we've seen with Porzingis. He's barely played for Atlanta, and when he's played, it's been in very limited minutes. Granted, he's averaging like 17 points in 23 minutes so far, so his per 36 got to be insane. I have no idea what it is, but it's got to be something crazy. But in this case, we're going to send him for Anthony Davis here. The Hawks are really looking to win now and be a defensive minded unit again. I think Anthony Davis would be the perfect fit for that. Onyeka Okongwu is a good center, but he's a six man. He's not your starting five. He's an undersized center. He's an energy guy. He's not going to lock down your best big. They get Anthony Davis, who can do that and does have that ability. You pair that with Jalen Johnson, I think that pick and roll would be dangerous. At the perimeter, you get a huge plus defender in the paint with Anthony Davis. Pair that with those perimeter defenders and Dyson Daniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. That would be a dangerous, dangerous defensive team. And if Jalen Johnson can get back to his 2022-2023 form defensively, Atlanta could be a very scary defensive unit if this trade were to go down. I think this could possibly push Atlanta back to top 5 talks in the Eastern Conference and maybe establish themselves as a true contender. I think they're still missing quite a ton of pieces here. I think their bench could be filled out post this trade, but this would be a really big move for Atlanta. I think Anthony Davis would be the best player they've had in almost probably 30 years, since Dominique Wilkins maybe. But yeah, I think Atlanta should definitely pursue this trade if it's available, and in this scenario, it is. All right, the next trade we got on deck, we are going to be sending Michael Porter Jr. to the Golden State Warriors in exchange for Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, and Buddy Hield. Now, Michael Porter Jr., I think, is almost a guarantee to be traded. He's playing too well for Brooklyn right now, and when I say too well, as in they can get a lot for how he's playing right now. 26 points per game, all-star type of play right now for Michael Porter Jr. I think it'd be pretty cool to see him become an all-star. But we're going to send him to Golden State, get him back into at least somewhat of a contention scenario here. And then Brooklyn's going to get back two interesting young players in a vet and Buddy Hield. And most importantly, the two picks at the bottom here. But for the Michael Porter Jr. side, if you think about the Golden State Warriors dynasty and what it's been built on, it's been built by players like Michael Porter Jr., right? The guys who can get their own bucket, the guys who can come off screens and knock down shots. And Michael Porter Jr. can be a good defender when he wants to. I think playing off the gravity of Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler will allow him to really be a good defender on the other end. A lot like what he was for Denver in 2023, where he went from one of probably the worst defenders in the NBA to at least solid enough to really help the Nuggets win a championship. I think he could bring that same thing to Golden State, especially playing off a guy like Draymond Green, and then, of course, Jimmy Butler helping you on the perimeter. As for the Brooklyn Nets, Jonathan Kuminga, I think Steve Kerr hates his guts. I don't know what he did. I don't know if he kidnapped his dog or anything like that. I don't know if he beat him in 2K one day. Steve Kerr just does not like Jonathan Kuminga and refuses to play him now. He needs a fresh start, especially after basically being forced to re-sign with Golden State. So we're going to send him to Brooklyn, let him do his thing, right? Get some buckets here. Let's see if they can maximize his potential over there before they use probably one of these top 5 picks on a franchise-changing guy. Moses Moody, I think it's time for him to have a change of scenery as well. It's really been an up and down scenario for him. He's had some really good moments in Golden State, but I think time is up, and Golden State just needs an upgrade, and I think Moses Moody is probably going to be a guy that's sacrificed. Then Buddy Hield, I think Jimmy Butler would love to see this happen, but he's here for cap purposes. I know it's his fail, but I don't really care. He's still here for cap purposes, so we're just going to include him in the deal. And then the 2 first-round picks are going to be very interesting. The 2029 pick swap is really what I prioritize for Brooklyn here, getting that later pick, because you never know what Golden State could be down the line. They could either be really good and really flawless outside the Steph Curry era, or they could go back to being one of the bottom teams in the NBA. I think that's a good risk for Brooklyn to take in this scenario. The next name we're going to discuss is Coby White. Now, Coby White's a pure hooper, but he has been very injured this year. And outside of that, I think he just needs to get up out of Chicago. They're not winning anything anytime soon. They're still in that play-in range, and he's due for an extension. I think Chicago should move him and not extend him and really get ahead on the future of this team, right? I think they could be competing for one of the top picks if they wanted to, and this trade would get them ahead of that. I think the Pistons should also pursue this because they really need some help for Cade Cunningham scoring-wise, in my opinion. Excuse the quality of this pick. It's really zoomed in, but we're going to be sending Coby White to the Detroit Pistons in exchange for Jaden Ivey. A little bit of Midwest trading here, but Coby White would really give the Pistons a huge scoring upgrade that Jaden Ivey was supposed to, right? Jaden Ivey was supposed to be the backcourt mate for Cade Cunningham for the long run, but dealing with injuries and just poor play since he's come back from that said injury last year just hasn't worked out so far for Detroit. So why not give them Coby White, who is a very capable scorer, 20-plus points per game scorer in the NBA today. I think this would give them a huge boost, and really, I think this could put them over the edge of New York if they were to go into another 7-game series. Remember last year when New York and Detroit played in the first round, really the biggest question was who else was going to help Cade Cunningham scoring-wise. It really seemed to come by committee, but when the committee didn't show up, that's when it spelled a lot of issues for Detroit. I think that also showed up in the fourth quarter, where if you were looking for an answer for Jalen Brunson, you weren't getting it on the defensive end, so who else was going to do it on offense when Cade Cunningham was getting all the attention? It can't just be Tobias Harris and friends, guys. I think Coby White should be a move they look to make here. Whether they choose to start him at the 2, whether they choose to bring him off the bench, whatever it is, this is a move they need to make to really put them over the top in the Eastern Conference. There's been reports that Detroit is fine with their roster, and that's okay with me too, because they're the number one seed for a reason. But I think a lot of number one seeds also need to make a push when it's time, and I think this is that push. And I think Coby White's so good, we're going to make another trade with Coby White, this time sending him to the Houston Rockets in exchange for Clint Capella, Tari Eason, Jae'Sean Tate, and a first-round pick swap. This should be a pick swap from the Phoenix Suns. Now, this is interesting, right? Because Houston has needed some guard help ever since Fred VanVleet went down with injury. And a lot of names have been floated around. I think Trae Young was a popular name just because he was an available point guard. But for Houston, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Coby White, to me, would make a lot of sense in Houston. He fits the build of today's modern point guard, right? Of course, he's a great scorer that can really complement Kevin Durant. Most importantly, he's a floor spacer too. He can hit the three ball. Houston sucks. Sucks at spacing, right? Whenever Reed Shepherd is not on the floor, it's just clunky hoops, man. And they just need some help for Kevin Durant whenever he's not on the floor. Because Ime Udoka said it the other day. We can't hoop without a 37-year-old on the court. So why not get some help in Coby White? It's a very tradable contract for that basically $13 million a year. The prize of this deal is Tari Eason, who the reports have been for years that he is wanting a contract extension. I don't know if Houston gives him that extension because of the litany of role players they have like him on the roster. And of course, the big need for point guard help, not only for now, but also for the future of the team. So we're going to send Tari Eason, give him a fresh start with Chicago. This would probably, end the days of Patrick Williams in Chicago, which I don't think anybody in Chicago would care at this point. And then, of course, some salary filler at this point. Clint Capella, he was just signed for vibes, I guess. Of course, they had that big man duo from last year. The vision was that Clint Capella could be basically the sixth man of that group with Şengün and Steven Adams, but that duo just did not translate into this year very well. So we're going to send him here as a salary dump, and then Jae'Sean Tate, he doesn't play. He's also just there for vibes, so we're going to send him to Chicago as well. But Houston getting a huge upgrade here at Coby White. I think this would be a big move for them really in the Western Conference, trying to get out of that middle of the pack. All right, for the last portion of this video, we're just going to do a little trolling here and really just imagine some Woj bomb type of trades that have a very small chance of happening, but will be very fun if they were to go down. And of course, there is some realism with these trades. So I call this one the white boy swap. We're going to send Tyler Herro, Simone Fontecchio, and Nikola Jovic plus 2 picks from the Miami Heat in exchange for Lauri Markkanen. Now, Lauri Markkanen has been hooping this year. Whenever Lauri Markkanen gets sent to the Finnish military, he comes back the next year and he hoops. What I mean the Finnish military this year, I just meant the Finnish Olympic team, but he's hooping this year. 28 points per game, right? He's putting up a lot of good points on a bad team, but it's not that he's just doing this because he's on a bad team. He is very capable of putting up stats like this as an all-star caliber player. So we're going to send him to the Heat, who need really just a retool of the roster, right? The current construction is not there. My favorite team got off to a hot start this year, but unfortunately, that hot start has gone cold. And with Tyler Herro, they did not choose to extend him this offseason, so you can kind of, see the tea leaves a little bit that maybe they are open to extending him. He's been in rumors for everybody. Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard was the big one. They've been holding out for Giannis for years, but this would at least give them the kickstart here, giving Lauri Markkanen a nice fit in Miami. You put him at possibly the 3 position. You can run probably one of the tallest lineups in the NBA with Lauri, Bam, and Kel'el Ware at the front court. He gives you a lot of versatility in that lineup, and it allows Miami to really exit the Tyler Herro era and really establish their guard rotation as some really nice perimeter ball stopper. Like Davion Mitchell can maybe be your starting point guard here. Drew Smith can get a lot more minutes. I think the point guard situation would have to be, a huge point to address after this trade, but giving Tyler Herro away for Lauri Markkanen, I think, is a good deal. Nikola Jovic, he has that poison pill contract, so that this will jump to, I think, about $16 million. He's been really shaky. I think Lauri Markkanen is kind of like the evolved Pokemon of what Nikola Jovic could be. So that's an easy fit for Miami. Simone Fontecchio, of course, they got him in the Duncan Robinson swap. He was really good at the start of the year, but he's gone back to last year's Detroit Pistons Simone Fontecchio. Just chucking up bricks at this point. So we're gonna send him to Utah as a salary dump here. But this would be a good move. I will like to mention as well, Danny Ainge loves Tyler Hero. I mean, color me shocked, but he loves Tyler Hero. He wanted the Celtics to draft him before the Heat swooped in and drafted him 2 picks earlier, all the way back in the 2019 drafts. So Danny Ainge gets his guy. Of course, Danny Ainge and Pat Riley kind of settled their beef when the Heat traded for Norman Powell in the offseason. Let's see them do this again at the trade deadline. Again, whenever it says failed, we're going to choose to ignore it here. But the Boston Celtics get the big man of the future, or at least the big man for their next contention window, in Domantas Sabonis in exchange for Anthony Simons, Sam Hauser, and a first-round pick all the way in 2031. The Celtics, we knew they were going to retool, and they've been looking for their next big man. I don't know if they're going to be good enough with Keita at the 5, or maybe they even give Luka Garza some looks in the future. But this would give them an established all-star. Obviously, he's not as good as his defender as like an Al Horford was or Kristaps Porzingis was in the paint. But this gives them at least a good option, especially offensively, especially another ball handler there at the top of the key. So we're going to give them to the Boston Celtics here, really establishing their next era in exchange for Anthony Simons. Look, when they traded for Simons in exchange for Jrue Holiday, this is what most of us expected here, for him to eventually be used in another trade that Boston could use, just because his contract is expiring. And if he were to stay with the Celtics, it'd be on a very small extension. And he's been shaky. He is a shaky player, right? He's very streaky. So, it's as expected right now. This is kind of the Anthony Simons ball we've expected for a long time. But we're going to send him as a salary dump and really let the Kings explore what they could do with him, right, in a bigger role. Let him shoot. Just let him shoot in Sacramento, because they ain't got nothing else going on down there, right? I don't know if y'all seen the TikTok trend of the Pelicans and Kings fans like going out every week saying, "We snatched your chain. Y'all come get the 14 seed back." It's one of the funniest things this season. It reminds me of like the Lakers and Warriors play-in banter. Anyways, though, this would give them at least a bright spot here. They've been looking for the point guard of the future after trading away 2 point guards of the future. So why not give them Anthony Simons to see if he can complement that role nicely. Sam Hauser, I don't see the Celtics ever trading him, actually. I just needed him to make this trade work hypothetically. And then a 2031 first-round pick. They just need to get a pick back. I think that'd be a big win after trading Sabonis. But this is a fun trade. Don't see it happening, but it's definitely in the realm of possibility. Last trade of the delusional section of this video, and we are getting wild here. Now, this trade legally cannot happen for plenty of reasons. Number one, Paolo Banchero's poison pill deal. And, of course, you cannot trade 5 players for 1 without cutting at least 4 of them back from Milwaukee. But how fun would this be, right? A Giannis trade at the trade deadline. This would be crazy. But this trade sees Giannis getting traded to the Orlando Magic in exchange for Paolo Banchero, Jonathan Isaac, Anthony Black, Tristan Da Silva, Jace Richardson. And I can't really scroll down on this picture. Maybe I can. Actually, yes, I can. Look at all the picks we're going to give up here to the Milwaukee Bucks in exchange for Giannis. Now, the Giannis situation, it's weird because reports are coming out that Giannis wants to be traded and would like a trade if the Bucks can't win, but he's never going to request a trade. He's only going to be traded if the front office trades him. But the front office would never trade Giannis. Blah, 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 this, and that. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know why they're having this random back and forth here. Giannis probably will never go up to John Horst and say, "I'm out of here. Get me up out of Milwaukee." But at the same time, if Giannis Antetokounmpo goes and declines a contract extension, then what else are you gonna do? You're not gonna let him walk in free agency. No, you're gonna trade him. So in this scenario, we're gonna trade him for Paolo Banchero. I think Paolo Banchero, his time it's ticking a little bit in Orlando, right? The time to win in Orlando is now. They've been a middling team in the Eastern Conference for about 3 to 4 seasons now, and they have the pieces to be a really good contending team. With Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs whenever he's healthy. Paolo's supposed to be that guy, but he's been very up and down. This would give them a much better fit, in my opinion, in Giannis. The offense, I think, would be smoother. It'd definitely be faster than what Paolo brings to the table whenever he and Franz Wagner are on the court at the same time. You pair that with Jalen Suggs, who to me is a Derek White clone, literally and figuratively, based on play style and hair at this point. But he'd be a really nice fit next to Giannis. We know how well he works off of players like that, i.e. Drew Holiday back in Milwaukee. But this would be the trade to make Orlando a contender in the Eastern Conference again. They've had very good big men in the past. Shaq, Dwight Howard, Giannis would be the next variation of that. He could be the next big man to lead Orlando back to the NBA Finals and maybe be the first to bring them an NBA championship in this scenario. But yeah, that's the video, guys. I decided to not go with like the smaller trades and only focus on big names here, but that's what I expect the trade deadline to be. Just a bunch of small trades. Maybe some contenders make some few big moves here. But more or less, small trades is what I expect. But thank you so much for watching the video. Let me know in the comments what type of videos you want to see in the future, because I've been really struggling to really pivot here. Should I go NFL only? Should I go NBA only? Or should I continue doing both? We'll see. But this one was fun. I'll see you all in the next one.